So guys, today we have 3 solar builds here that you should get ready before the Edge of Fate launches. With the brand new artifact coming out, there's a whole load of solar based things, which is going to be very, very strong. You have Fever and Chill and Shield Crush primarily. Fever and Chill here states that rapid precision hits with solar weapons grants Radiant, but rapid precision hits with stasis weapons grants Frost Armor, and this is going to pair extremely well with the new perk Shield Crush, where while you have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or an Overshield, your melee recharges faster and deals increased damage, but while you're Amplified or Radiant, your grenade recharges faster and also deals increased damage. These two perks, alongside the builds that we talk about today, are going to be so good that I wouldn't be surprised if many people bring these into the day one raid race, because they are going to be just that potent. One other thing that I need to mention is that if you have access to the tower, which I believe is most of you, you'll be getting these 20 free exotic engram tokens, I think they're called, which you can use at Ada 1 to then get newer versions of exotics you already own. So I'm going to be recommending that the exotics I mentioned here in today's video should be the top priority in terms of exotics that you use these tokens on. Now, the reason you're going to want to use these tokens is because they'll be updating the exotics you already have access to with the brand new stat archetypes, which is going to be dictating how spiky your drops of these exotics are, and they're most likely going to come with better stat rolls than your current ones, so they're very worth getting as soon as the expansion drops. With that all said, let's just jump into the builds themselves. First off here, let's talk Solar Warlocks. Now, this build isn't revolutionary, it's not brand new, but it is going to be very potent with the new expansion. That is, of course, a Starfire Protocol Warlock build. Now, Starfire Protocol, if you don't know, it's just flat out buffing your fusion grenades and will allow you to regenerate them faster when you become Radiant or are empowered. Now, the main change there is with Radiant, so you used to not be able to get it with Radiant, but now you can. And because of the artifact perks allowing you to become Radiant very easily, you're going to be very easily able to now generate your fusion grenades back even faster. So for the main abilities here, you are of course going to want to use Fusion Grenade and pair that with one of the aspects called Touch of Flame. This is another straight up buff to your Fusion Grenade, allowing it to explode twice, which just means double damage. Now, for main other aspects to pair with this, I'm going to recommend Hellion, just for the free damage that Solar Buddy is able to generate, but Icarus Dash is always a nice movement option there as well. Now, moving on to the fragments, most of these are what you would expect. Ember of Solace, Radiant and Restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. Ember of Ashes, you apply more Scorch stacks to targets, which leads to more ignitions, which is free damage. Ember of Mercy, when you revive an ally, you and other nearby allies gain Restoration, and picking up a Fire Sprite will grant you Restoration. Pairs once again really nicely with Ember of Solace there, and then Ember of Searing, defeating a Scorched target grants melee energy and creates a Fire Sprite. Fire Sprites are also going to be feeding into your grenade, so all of these things together means that you're going to be having Radiant all the time as well as Restoration and feeding everything back into your grenades so that you're able to just throw those out constantly during a DPS phase. Once again, you probably already knew about this build, but I just wanted to refresh your memory on it because it is going to be super potent within Edge of Fate. But now let's jump over to the Hunter build. Now, once again, this is a very well-known build, but I've added some stuff that might be very important to it in terms of one fragment in particular, but we'll get into that in a bit. So this Hunter build, obviously Sestral Nighthawk paired with Still Hunt. Nothing surprising here. The main aspects you're going to want to use, Knock 'em Down as well as Gunpowder Gamble, but I believe the other aspect that hunters have access to on the solar subclass did actually get buffed, so that one might be good as well. But Gunpowder Gamble is going to be definitely the one that I recommend you keep, just because of the fragment pairings that we have here. So first fragment is Ember of Eruption, where your solar ignitions have an increased area of effect. We then have Ember of Ashes, where you apply more Scorch stacks to targets. Then we have Ember of Wonder, where rapidly defeating multiple targets with solar ignitions generates an orb of power. That's going to be feeding back into your super, which is what we want. And then for the final fragment here, I have Ember of Beams, so that your solar super projectiles have a stronger target acquisition, but we're not really using it for that benefit. We are instead using it for the +10 it gives to your intellect stat. Now, if you are aware of the stat changes coming with Edge of Fate, you'll now know that intellect is becoming the super stat, and if you get your super stat to above a rank 10, that means you'll need either a 101 to 200 within that super stat. You'll be gaining a flat out boost to your super damage. So if this fragment is able to give you a +10 to your super stat to get you over that 100 mark, then that means that from this fragment alone, you're just going to get a huge boost there to your overall super damage, which is going to be very, very potent. Now, I do not know if this will work alongside Still Hunt. I doubt it will. I don't think Still Hunt gets buffed depending on the super stat itself, but we will need to test that later on. But either way, Celestial Nighthawk paired with this newly introduced super stat benefit of increased damage. Once your super stat is at in between 101 and 200 stat points, it's going to be very, very good. And then finally, let's talk this new Titan build. Now, this build is mainly focused around the brand new Solar Titan gloves that allow you to recool your Solar Hammer. But in case you don't have those gloves yet or aren't planning on getting them as soon as the expansion launches, Phoenix Cradle is actually going to be a good alternative to pair with this build. But going off of the idea that you're using it mainly with the Solar Titan gloves that allow you to recool your throwing hammer, you're of course going to want to use throwing hammer as your main melee ability. Then for the aspects, we have Roaring Flames and Soul Invictus, and for the fragments, we have Ember of Torches, where powered melee attacks against combatants make you and nearby allies radiant, Ember of Searing, where defeating a scorched target grants melee energy and creates a fire sprite, which can be very handy with those new exotics, and Ember of Ashes, where you apply more scorch stacks to targets, and finally Ember of Mercy, where when you revive an ally, you and other nearby allies gain restoration, and picking up a fire sprite will grant you restoration. For those who don't know, fire sprite generation with this build is going to be very, very important, because you need to pick up a fire sprite or defeat targets with solar weapons in order to gain the buff that will allow you to then recool your solar hammer. If you're able to generate those consistently enough, you should be able to just constantly be throwing your solar hammer out and then being able to recall it, no problem. But once again, if you don't have those exotics quite yet, Phoenix Cradle with the buff it is getting alongside the partnership with Soul Invictus to buff your sunspots is going to be a very good alternative until you get those new Titan gloves. And those are the 3 builds that I would recommend most people go after. And once again, I need to reiterate that once Edge of Fate launches, Ada 1 will be giving you these tokens which you can use to regain newly updated versions of these past exotics. So if you want to take advantage of these builds, be sure to head over to Ada 1 once Edge of Fate launches to grab yourself these tokens to then focus the new exotics that I mentioned here in this video. Those being, of course, Starfire Protocol, Celestial Nighthawk, and Phoenix Cradle. And then obviously if you want to get new exotics, you're going to want to go to Master Rahul and make sure that you have some exotic engrams and ascendant materials prepped already so that you can max out his rank to then get those brand new exotics. And don't worry guys, if you need a reminder on what you need to do in order to prepare for getting these new exotics very, very quickly, I do have a prep guide already on my channel, so you can watch that if you want, but I'll also be making another like last minute guide within like the next couple of weeks before the expansion launches. With that all said, that's it for today's video, so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, remember to leave a like and subscribe. But that's it from me here today, so I'll see you all in the next one.